says Dr. Morgan on it. Do you remember that? It was so fun. She gave it back, but I like it. But it is really a privilege. We were supposed to have Dr. Teresa Brown from Long Beach, and with all things in this season, flexibility is our byword. And so we hadn't printed the program yet. And now I'm in the position to be leading this particular session. Jeannie, you don't have to stay up here. Dr. Morgan, you don't have to stay up here, but we'll invite you back when I'm done. Make sure you've got the Slido number, and you follow that on the back of your program or in your Whova app if you're online. If you think of questions, please use Slido to ask your questions. Now, this program, and I have a microphone that doesn't hide me. So this program is a labor of love, and I want you to meet Sarah and Anna. Both of them, Sarah's in the back, wave. Anna's in the front, wave, stand up. They have never been to an Insured Justice conference, and they had to put it on. Isn't that amazing? Really great. And our interns have been wonderful. And of course, our partners at Orange County Department of Education. I loved it that our Spanish introduction was by Zara, the vice president of our Live to Free Club. And it's just, it's wonderful to see how everyone's working together. There is another full class participating in the conference today from Cal State Fullerton. So hi, big shout out to you guys and to my friends in Canada, in Australia, India. Debbie in Indonesia, are you awake? I think it's 1 o'clock in the morning for you to participate, but she registered and she said, I'm going to stay awake because I want to be part of the live event. So people, we are a community that is knit together with a common purpose. And I need a bottle of water. I forgot to bring one up here. Our program offers a lot of content about our partners at OCDE and their goals, as well as resources in the Global Center for Women in Justice. But as we start our journey this weekend, I want you to notice that your program has 3 pages for taking notes. People always say, why do you put note pages? That's empty space. No, we need empty space in our lives. We need space to write down our thoughts, to process. So this is a gift for you to have space to write down, process the things you want to go back and review. So somebody let me know if I start going over time because I don't see a clock anywhere. Oh, Sarah's going to let me know. Thank you, Sarah. All right. So enough about the program. Welcome. I just am so grateful that we get to be here together today. Give yourselves a big hand for showing up. And those of you who are online, I hope you gave yourself a big hand as well. So the clicker, I'm told, will work, and I'm going to try it. Look at that. So someone already mentioned the Maasai warrior greeting, and I'm not Maasai, so I'm just going to pronounce this the best I can. CASSERIAN ENGERI. Now that's more with the Greek accent. So just so you know, I didn't get it straight from the Maasai. But the principle of how are the children, that is what we're going to talk about. And when the community comes together so that the children are doing well, The answer when one warrior greets another is all the children are well. And I want you to think about the concept of warrior because we kind of have a tendency to not think of ourselves in those terms. I want to ask you what to do if the answer is all the children are not fine. When I was at the priceless luncheon in September, where we raised the budget to do things like this, two judges that will be here tomorrow were sitting together, and their table was close enough to the platform that when I asked the question, how are our children, they responded in unison, our children are not fine. And I want you to own that. How are our children? Okay, with conviction this time. How are our children? Hello. Oh my goodness, I am so grateful for the people in this room. So in Orange County, we have an entire brigade of warriors that report every year on the conditions of children. And I want you to start thinking about that. You can download this report. I'm not going to read it to you today. I don't like to lecture that way, right? My students know that. I want to have a good conversation. Some of the people that are on that, in that unit, think of them as a brigade, include the 4th District Orange County Board of Supervisor, Vice Chair Deborah Bates, our Orange County Sheriff, Don Barnes, presiding juvenile justice, Judge Joanne Moteiki, Dr. Al Mijares, right here. We've got some of the most important people right here in the room. Later this afternoon, you'll meet Juliet Oliver, one of our district attorneys. There will be public health people here. You have to get the report to find out who the warriors are, but they are here to defend our children. And in the report, I don't know how well, I think you can read that. Can you read that? One of the things that they do, and this for a researcher, I love having filters. So I think of each of these columns as a filter. How are we doing with our children's health? How are we doing with their economic well-being? How are we doing with their educational achievement? What is their housing and their safe home community like? And every time you see a red dot here, I don't want you to think, oh, somebody's not doing that. I want you to think, how could I be part of the solution? The red dot, how can I be part of better early prenatal care? Is there a single mom in your neighborhood? Low birth weight, physical fitness and nutrition, behavioral health. In the next column, child poverty and housing, educational achievement. This is probably going to really surprise a lot of people. Chronic absenteeism. I am amazed at our teachers during COVID. I had the privilege of living next door to a 4th grade teacher, and she taught in the room that was next to my driveway. And I would come outside and I would literally see her through the window, practically dancing in front of her computer to keep 29-year-olds engaged. Our teachers are warriors. And then safe homes, our child welfare folks are warriors. And Christine Snapper will be here this afternoon to represent them. So here's what is happening globally. we have a flagship report from the United Nations, The State of the World's Children. This was issued a few months ago. And the theme is on my mind: promoting, protecting, and caring for children's mental health. This is a theme. This is a theme we're hearing. And our plenary session today is a restorative start. And the reason I was so inspired by Dr. Brown was she defined a restorative start as not full of more, but full of less. That's why I wanted empty pages in the program. Her restorative start was less homework, less staff meetings, less. We need space. Think about that. On my mind is the theme of the UN Children's Report. And it takes some time, go online and look at the videos, because the videos are exactly following this same pattern we are. Yes, we want to ask our children, what's on your mind? But we need to ask our parents, our teachers, our social workers, our law enforcement, what's on your mind? Because the parents, the adults, are the ones who are listening to a child tell you what's on their mind. It has to be inclusive. That report also says that we need to examine caregiver mental health. So yeah, we're talking about the child and the adolescent, but we have to talk about the community that is serving that child. We have to assess their mental health and provide resources. In this report, they identify risks and protective factors in the course of life that will help shape mental health and well-being. When the other Dr. Morgan comes, she is not going to tell you what's wrong with your kids. She's going to tell you how you can be part of the solution for these determinants that shape mental health and well-being. It calls, though, for commitment, communication, and action. I loved Dr. Beal's call to conviction. This has to be in us. And these ideas of commitment, communication, and action from the UN report, those are the anchors for us as we build a comprehensive approach to promote good mental health for every child. And you're going to hear from Pam Kahn today about adverse childhood experiences. Yesterday, as we began to see the ramping up of the conflict in Ukraine, we went out and found sunflowers. And they're just a reminder that the impact of conflict on children is unbelievable. How are we going to be part of the commitment, the communication, and the action to protect and to serve those facing those great challenges? Now, in anti-human trafficking work, I have had to deal with, hold that up again, Sarah, because I didn't see it. Okay, good. I have had to deal with a lot of misconceptions around the word rescue. Rescue is a great word. I love romantic stories where the prince comes in and rescues the princess, right? When I was growing up, that's probably not a healthy model to teach our young women. They don't need to have I need to be rescued mentalities. So we got to move away from that so that we have healthier relationships. In anti-trafficking work, people produce reports that say we rescued 80 minors this week, or we rescued 100 girls at a brothel in Mumbai. Well, what do you mean by rescue? And I met a CEO that went to Ghana with the idea that he was going to rescue mostly boys who were labor trafficking victims on in the fishing industry. So I'm going to do like a 5-minute case study, and then you can follow up and listen to podcast number 266. How many of you are subscribed to the Ending Human Trafficking podcast? If you're not, well, no, I won't, but I was going to take points away, but you don't get a grade today. They do though. So, Chris Fields in episode number 266 broke this down for me and began to explain why he doesn't use the word rescue. He said, I'm not a citizen savior. And I thought if we got the boys away from the fishing industry, the traffickers that were using them, then they would be safe. But what I found out is there was not a safe community for them, and they went back. They were back. Recidivism rates were really high. So here's the problem. You have children who are labor trafficked in the fishing industries. Organizations for decades have been going in to rescue the children. And then we have high recidivism rates. Chris began to do a lot more community education, community listening. He went and spoke to the leaders in villages. He found out what their business plan was. I don't know anything about the fishing industry. For me, fishing is twice a year with grandpa. You go fishing and I have to hold a worm and put it on a hook. And then the only part I actually like is cooking the trout. That's the only part. My daughter, on the other hand, has actually caught a halibut or a salmon anyway in Alaska. It's wonderful. Fishing is a sport for me, not a livelihood. And for these villages, this was their livelihood. So Chris began to look for another way to organize rescue that supported a healthy community. So he started by looking at the leaders, working with them, negotiating to release the children to their families. Now, you're going to hear from Christine Snapper about when the family situation, the home isn't safe. And so you can't just take them from one situation and put them in another situation that doesn't have the kind of healthy environment that we need for those kids. So they started hiring case managers to work with the families for reintegrating the children in those families. Your kids have to go to school. Your kids have to go see a dentist. Your kids have to see a pediatrician. And there's a checklist, and the case manager goes back. So when they're first taken out of the fishing industry, they're in an emergency shelter situation, residential program. But at the same time, their parents are in a restoration process as well. Employment and resources for the parents. So since they've been doing that, and they have caseworkers that go back first every week, then every month, then every 6 months, and then once a year, kids are staying in school. Kids are healthy. Parents are better, and parents have jobs. And the recidivism rates are almost non-existent. This is one of the staff outreach workers that goes. So it's not, I'm not going to take my students and they're going to do the rescue and do all of the case management. This is community leaders serving the community. What a healthy model. And then rescue isn't a moment in time, it's a process. So the author of Under the Mango Tree, I suggest you get that and read it to your kids so they begin to learn at an early age these principles, is the founder of Mercy Project, Chris Fields. And I nominated them for an award that won't come out for a while, so who knows if they will win. But I told Paul Chang, who will be with us tomorrow from Department of Labor, that I'd nominated, and he wrote back to me, Mercy's project's role in capacity building and stabilizing the economy is the best way to eliminate slavery. Pricing is key, and building up Ghana's infrastructure will significantly reduce the vulnerabilities. Now, I don't really understand what all he just said. I'm not a business major. Are there any business majors here today? Yes. See, you probably get that. And you probably thought you had to quit your business major and become a social worker to rescue victims of human trafficking, but you don't. I need people who understand that we need a strong economy for our children to be safe. There should be business leaders in this audience today. Children need, oh, there's Paul's quote for you. And this PowerPoint will be on the Whova app. So those of you who are have downloaded the app, you can find all of these things once the conference is over. Children need a healthy community around them. What you're going to experience in the next 2 days is a conference full of expertise that will talk to you about how to support the adults as well as the children, how to address vulnerability, exploitation, how to have a safe community for safe children. Smart Mamas, Safe Kids tomorrow morning. You do not want to miss this. It's one of my favorite things we do here. And then Judge Joanne Motaiki and Judge Maria Hernandez will be here to talk about restorative justice. Don't miss that. We are grateful that you are with us online from all over the world and right here in Orange County and in this room to talk about a restorative start that prioritizes a safe community so that we can answer all of our children are fine. So I'd like to invite the other Dr. Morgan. That good? A little closer? Okay. All right. So as caregivers, as people who are involved in the fight and looking for, oh, we got to put my presentation up there. We need to know how to think about our stress differently, okay? And build a different relationship with our stress. Oh, I can look up there, sorry. Okay, what's the messages that you receive about stress? It's mostly that stress is bad for you, right? It makes you sick. It increases your risk of everything from heart disease to depression, addiction. It kills brain cells. It even makes us age faster, right? These are all the messages that we get all the time. Stress is toxic. It's public enemy number one. We must manage our stress. Do whatever you can to reduce it, right? Don't take on new things because don't help other people, etc., because it's toxic. The concerns about stress have been so dire that the American Psychological Association began collecting nationwide data back in 2006 to look at what's the stress in the nation. And basically,
the results have been that there are negative effects behaviorally, and this was done in 2020, and there's negative effects behaviorally since the pandemic began, and increases in alcohol consumption, weight gain, all different kinds of negative behaviors, mental health negative effects, increase in depression, increase in irritability. People are saying, yeah, we're snapping at people all the time, and increases in negative physical effects. Heart disease is increased, et cetera, since the pandemic, high blood pressure, all of that. So it all sounds terrible. So what can we do? In 1998, 30,000 US adults were asked 2 questions. How much stress did you experience in the past year? And do you believe stress is harmful to your health? So take a second to think about your own answer to those questions. Eight years later, people who reported high levels of stress had increased risk of dying by 43%. But that risk only applied to those who believed that the stress was harmful. People who reported high levels of stress but did not view it as harmful had the lowest risk of death, even lower than those who reported experiencing very little stress. So, the effect you expect is the effect you get. So to understand how this is possible, we're gonna need to do a little bit of a biology lesson. So we're gonna talk about 2 of our stress hormones. There are more, but we're gonna focus on the 2 that are pertinent today. So both of these hormones are released by your adrenal gland during times of stress, but they serve different roles. So the first hormone, you probably have heard of cortisol, right? You've seen the commercials that it increases belly fat. Everybody's seen that, right? Yeah, so everybody knows about cortisol. So cortisol is actually the hormone that turns sugar and fat into energy to be used. It also suppresses your functions that are less important during times of high threat. So digestion, which that's probably why you get the belly fat, it slows it all down, slows down digestion, reproduction, and growth. So when there's a threat or an immediate danger, we need all of that to happen so that we have our energy going to respond to that threat. So it is actually an important hormone. The next hormone is called the DHEA. I practice saying it, but I'm not going to do it. It's DHEA, which I actually call the happily ever after hormone, based on that. It's a neurosteroid that helps your brain actually grow stronger. So just like testosterone helps your body grow stronger from physical exercise, DHEA actually helps your brain grow stronger from stressful experiences. And it counters some of the effects of the cortisol. So for example, cortisol kind of reduces growth, right? DHEA actually increases immune function and wound repair, etc. So it's a really important hormone. So we sound like cortisol's not great, right? We don't want cortisol, but that's actually not true. Both of these hormones are actually important. However, the ratio is what is important, as it is what influences the long-term consequences of stress, especially when the stress is chronic. So in our society, pandemic, everything going on, stress has been chronic. So higher levels of cortisol can be associated with worse outcomes, such as impaired immune function and depression, while higher levels of DHEA have been linked to a reduced risk of anxiety, depression, heart disease, etc. So this is the ratio, right? They're both necessary, but the ratio of DHEA to cortisol is actually called the growth index and is considered a measure of resiliency. It's the growth index of a stress response, the physiological experience that you have when you're stressed. So a higher growth index, meaning more DHEA, helps people thrive under pressure, okay? So when you're stressed, both hormones rise. You actually still, the cortisol is still rising. So you get both cortisol and DHEA. If you have a stress response like we expect, then you think cortisol is going to be higher than your DHEA. However, when you have the growth index, you want the DHEA is going to be higher than the cortisol. They're both rising. And what studies have found is that in college students, it actually predicts persistence and resilience, as well as higher GPAs. In studies of military personnel, when you have the growth index, a higher growth index, it is associated with greater problem-solving skills, faster reaction times, and fewer post-traumatic stress symptoms after. And it even predicts resilience in extreme circumstances, such as recovering from child abuse. So a higher growth index is strengthening resilience. So what can we do to have a higher growth index? Psychologist Dr. Aaliyah Crum of Columbia University has conducted several studies examining the effect of mindset on physiology. So she turned her curiosity to discovering if a mindset intervention would have an effect on the growth index. And her research and several subsequent researchers have conducted experiments where they use participants' saliva to measure their hormone response to highly stressful situations. So before being interviewed by highly critical interviewers, participants were shown one of two videos with different messages about stress. Either stress is harmful or stress is enhancing. Or that research shows that stress is enhancing. And the results were that there were no effect on cortisol levels. Everyone's cortisol went up during the interview. And the stress is enhancing video, where they had more DHEA released and had a higher growth index than those who watched the other video. So viewing stress as helpful actually creates a different biological reality. So then mindset matters. Okay, sorry. So clearly then, how you think about stress matters. Further research reveals that a negative view of stress is associated with a very different outcome than a positive perspective. So in thinking about a mindset is a belief that biases how you think, feel, and act. So there's two different kinds of mindsets. There's the threat mindset and the challenge mind threat. A threat mindset is that stress is the enemy. It's got to be vanquished. We must manage it, right? Your heart rate gets elevated, blood vessels constrict. It's associated with cardiovascular disease, depression, anxiety, all the things we've talked about. And you go into a default response rather than a problem-solving response. On the other hand, a challenge mindset is where your stress response is viewed as a resource. So in that case, your heart rate elevates just like it does in a threat response, right? But instead of your blood vessels constricting, they actually open up, which allows oxygen to get to your brain, so you have better problem solving, better speaking, communication, etc., to actually be helpful. You get all of these other feel-good hormones released as well when you have the DHEA higher than your cortisol and in this challenge response. So you have endorphins, adrenaline, testosterone, oxytocin, and dopamine. So when you have a challenge mindset, you actually transform the physiology of fear into the biology of courage. So a threat mindset often when people have a threat mindset, they'll view stress as a sign that you, because you are experiencing stress, you are somehow inadequate, right? It's kind of the messages that we've been given for so long, is that if you can't handle it, you're feeling overwhelmed, you're stressed, you must be doing something wrong. You're inadequate. So if you were strong enough, smart enough, good enough, you wouldn't be stressed. So being stressed becomes a sign of personal failure, which explains why viewing stress as harmful increases your risk of depression. When stress is an enemy to vanquish, we spend our time trying to manage it and avoid it. We give up experiences that challenge us, that we can grow from, be proud of, or strengthen our relationships. And ultimately, research shows that those with the strongest desire to avoid stress experience more of what they are trying to avoid: poor concentration, low energy, and poor self-control. So think about it. What opportunities have you turned down or cut out of your life because you thought they would be too stressful? How many times in life have you said no to opportunities to move toward your values, your goals, and connections with others to avoid the stress that comes with those? When we view stress as harmful and something to be avoided, we rob ourselves of a meaningful life. On the other hand, if we take on the challenge mindset, where we view stress as helpful, there's a lot of positive consequences. So more studies looked at how viewing stress as helpful affects performance in high pressure situations, like exams, interviews, public speaking, etc. And results indicate a higher growth index consistently predicts better performance under pressure. It's associated with giving you energy to help you rise to the challenge, focusing your attention, problem-solving skills improving, communication. It heightens your senses. Your vision actually becomes more acute. Your hearing becomes more acute. It increases your motivation, and it mobilizes your energy. Stress can also help you learn and grow. It also restores your nervous system balance and helps you integrate what's going on. Another finding is that having a higher growth index with stress activates pro-social instincts because it encourages the production of oxytocin. Oxytocin is a neurohormone that you may have referred to as the cuddle hormone. Anybody hear that? Basically, it's a hormone that is connection seeking. It makes you want to reach out to others. It actually inhibits the fear centers of the brain. So it increases your courage and activates your kind of tend and befriend response, is what that's called. So by dampening the fear response, imagine, like, you've seen those videos, or maybe you've actually seen it happen you've witnessed it in your real life. A crisis occurs and people jump in to help, sometimes with great risk to themselves, and strangers will band together to protect or save whoever, an animal, a person who is in danger. Protection, right? You go into protection mode for your children, or the children around you, or your family, or your friends. That's oxytocin kicking in. It also motivates people to seek human connection and support, both to seek the support of others and to provide support to others. So in times of stress, the tend and befriend response makes you social, brave, and smart. It provides both the courage and the hope to propel us into the action and the awareness to act skillfully. Anytime you choose to help others, you actually activate this state and increase your bravery to meet any challenge. We get stressed when something matters. We get stressed when we need our stress response to take action, when our goals are on the line. We need our stress response to learn from our mistakes. We need our stress response when our values are threatened and we need courage to defend them. We need our stress response when we need the courage to grow from stress, which is resilience. We need our stress response when we need connection, both offering and seeking support. If you feel stressed, it means something matters to you. So, what's the secret to resilient stress? Oops. In many ways, the stress response is your best ally during difficult moments, a resource to rely on rather than an enemy to vanquish. When you feel anxious or stressed, think about how your stress response can actually be helpful. Notice your signs of stress. Maybe your heart starts to race, your breath gets faster, your hands get sweaty. Turn a threat into a challenge. Your response is a help to you. If you see it as a help and a resource, and recognize that it's providing you energy, then your body and brain is gearing up to do well, it's going to help you perform. So when you experience your heart, wake up this morning, my heart goes, oh, I'm speaking today. Heart jumps, right? It's not, oh no, it's anxious. Oh no, it's a threat. It's, oh, okay, my body's giving me the energy to do this today, right? Also, find meaning. Feeling stressed is not a sign of inadequacy. It's a sign that you are living a meaningful life. Remember, your values can help transform stress from something that is happening against your will and outside of your control to something that invites you to honor and deepen your priorities. Find meaning in your everyday stress and change your relationship to the everyday experiences you perceive as hassles or burdens. Your primary goal is to go after what you want rather than to avoid stress. Look for how you can grow from the stress, and that's resilience. And seek connection. Caring for others triggers the biology of courage and creates hope and connection. So when you're feeling overwhelmed, look for a way to do something for or support someone else. Small acts, such as giving your appreciation or giving your undivided attention, can be just as powerful for the other person as it is for you. Take a moment to think about the kind of impact you want to have on the people around you, on society or society in general. When people are connected to bigger than themselves goals, they feel better, more hopeful, curious, caring, grateful, and brave. Caring creates resilience. So take a moment to reflect on how you view, or reflect on a time when stress has actually helped you. What was at stake and why did it matter to you? And how has your understanding of stress changed since the start of this presentation? And these are some authors and some resources for you to look at to find out more about some of these studies, because it's really interesting if you're a little nerdy like me. All right. Any questions?
Q&A. But I did want to say to Dr. Mijares that you had her at Santa Ana Unified for 12 years. So, but you 16, sorry. Yeah. So this is partly to our Orange County. Okay. Thank you, Stephanie. So Derek's got questions for us. I have to tell you that she became my stress tutor this last year. It has changed so many things for me. In fact, I was only awake 15 minutes really last night as I thought through all the things that could go wrong because of rain and everything else. I woke up and my heart was beating 2 a.m. and I said to myself, we are going, and I started making little notes about how I would problem solve. And I used to think if I woke up in the middle of the night, that was a bad thing. And now I see it as an opportunity to be better prepared. So I think my resiliency is grown, my courage mindset.
Trying to get access to it right now.
Oh,
It's not playing nice with me.
Shane, you want to bring me my iPad out of that? I have mine set up, so maybe mine will work. Or does anybody have like a question? Oh, did it work?
No.
Nope. Okay. Thank you. Let me see if I can do it. You see, I'm stressed and oh, here we go. Are there any questions? Here they are,
Thank you much.
right there. Look at that.
So we'll start with the easy one. When is stress too much stress, if there is a thing?
I think, as too much or ways for it to be too much is actually taking on that threat mindset, right? So yes, there are things that are going to happen in our lives that are out of our control, and it's being willing to look for, how can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? How is this actually something that matters to me, that I'm staying in it? So don't asking if there's too much, such a thing as too much stress is actually staying in that negative mind space.
And my answer to that actually is not really an answer. It's an observation where I've seen us as adults in a community say to our kids, do you have a lot of stress? Are you stressed? And I think that we're actually pushing them towards the threat mindset.
Absolutely. I think that's the piece that concerns me, is that, as caregivers, we need to model to our children how to think about stress and how to use stress as a resource. And if we're constantly telling kids, oh, are you feeling overwhelmed? Are you stressed? Are you, right? Like, yes, we need to check in with our kids. Absolutely. And we also need to teach them that stress is not something to be afraid of. It's not something to avoid. We actually can use it.
That's why I like the UN question, what's on your mind?
And you actually anticipate the second question, which is basically some tips on reframing and how do we talk with our kids about it, make it work. But there's also a question out there saying, what's the time frame? How long does it typically take someone to reframe, going from a threat to a challenge mindset?
That's an excellent question. It's actually very quick, right? Now that you have this knowledge, you know that biologically your body is actually trying to help you. It's a resource for you. Just that knowledge alone is instantaneous, right? So in many of the experiments, which again, I would say read these books, many of the in the experiments, what they've shown is they'll give the intervention where they do the mindset, right? Here's a video, it's 3 minutes. Look, your body is helping you. Or, hey, here's all the regular messages on stress. In that 3 minutes, they then go and do something to perform, like take the GRE, or go into a highly, highly critical interview where people are, telling them they're doing a terrible job. And the growth index for those who were given the mindset intervention and understand, that's all it is, understanding that your body is there to help you. That when your body's doing that, it's actually a resource. It's instantaneous. They performed better. They did better on the GRE. They were by blind and people watching the interviews, they actually performed better there as well. So it's instantaneous. The piece that is going to take time is practicing this mindset shift, right? So you have been told for so long, we have been told for so long that stress is the enemy. We must manage it and we must avoid it. So getting out of those habits of thinking, that's the piece that's going to take time. And that's the piece that's going to take a little intentionality, right? So it's when you notice it, you're going to have that first response and go, oh no, I'm feeling nervous. I'm feeling anxious. I must escape. But if you notice that and then go, okay, wait, actually, I'm feeling my body try to prepare me to do well. My body is trying to help me. And so it's going to take kind of practice, right? From the automatic instant thoughts to I need to be intentional about shifting into the challenge mindset.
Thank you. And we had a more technical question a little bit. How does this research apply to those who've experienced complex trauma? And what can we do to implement the mindset, this kind of research, this understanding mindset into care and
There has been a lot of research actually on this, and like I briefly mentioned, for kids who have experienced a lot of child abuse, and a lot of the work that I see actually with people, it absolutely applies, and it's teaching them, right? So they have experienced so much trauma that their biology is heightened, so their threat response is immediate, and that's what they've learned. So it's a very similar answer to kind of what I just said, right? It's teaching them about it, it's modeling it for them, and it's helping them to reinterpret, re-identify what their body is doing, what it's telling them. So it's not quick by any means. It does take some time and for a lot of other processing to happen, but at the same time, like this is what I see in the people I work with, and it's resiliency, right? It's learning that, hey, I can handle a challenge, and my body is actually helping me.
And our final one is this, a little bit more of the same, but basically, can you your presentation, but any other resources that come to mind that can help us learn a little bit more about the whole challenge and mindset and achieving it?
Well, there's also a lot of, if you're not a book reader, if you're more of I like to listen or watch, these authors actually have a lot of really good videos out as well. So Kelly McGonigal is the author of The Upside of Stress, and she reviews the research. And Carol Dweck, the author of Mindset, The New Psychology of Success, she also has conducted a lot of research and shares that in those books. And again, YouTube videos, etc. That's really my answer.
All right. Do you have any closing words, either of you, that you'd like to share with the audience?
I learned by doing, so I would like to ask Dr. Morgan to talk to me as though I'm an adolescent in a junior high class that is completely losing it. Help me reframe what
She just sent my stress response up, FYI.
Oh, she's gonna climb the mountain now.
Wait, you're
I'm a junior high girl who's just lost it, and the teacher sent me to the school site.
Really big question. So, yeah. What's going on?
I can't do any of this.
Okay, it feels like you can't do any of this, right? What's happening? Are you feeling your heart race?
My heart's racing, yes.
Yeah.
Can't you see?
Yeah. I'm not good at
Role
plays.
playing. See if we by ourselves, yeah.
So your heart is racing. And sometimes we think about that as that's bad, right? It feels really uncomfortable. And it definitely can feel uncomfortable when your heart is racing. And if your heart's racing, maybe you have because you have a test.
Yeah, I don't want to take the test.
Yeah. So your heart's racing. Guess what? Your heart is actually trying to send oxygen to your brain so that you can think and you can problem solve and you can do well. It's there to help you.
So you're going to talk to me about my biology.
Yes.
And am I going to be able to go back and take the test, or is this going to take repeated?
You're going to be able to go back and take the test.
Oh,
And
okay.
there may be some repeated
Okay.
um,
So
opportunities.
basically, we can start using this right now.
yes.
We don't
So
have to wait.
I work with a lot of people with anxiety. Like that is a primary condition I'm working with. And this is something that, like I said, you can have an instant result. You can have an instant shift in your growth index, right? But it does take some time to relearn the mindset. So this is stuff that I use and teach the people I work with every day. Every day we're talking about a mindset shift, because how you think impacts how you feel, and not just how you feel emotionally, but actually impacts how you feel physiologically and how your physiology responds.
Okay, because since I started telling myself that, and I have an image of I'm climbing a mountain, I go back to sleep because insomnia used to be part of my anxiety response. And I think that reframing this physiologically for kids takes away some of the personal guilt that there must be something lacking in me. So, okay.
Well, let's thank the Doctors Morgan for their time today.
It's break.
We have a 15-minute break, right? So we're going to set up for the next plenary. In the meantime, thanks for your attention, and we will see you in 15 minutes.